Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. Today, we're going to be looking at something that's kind of right in front of us.
Right.
Late stage, age-related macular degeneration, or AMD. We're focusing specifically on American whites for this one.
All right.
And you gave me some really interesting research to look at. A systematic review and meta-analysis from the American Journal of Ophthalmology,
Okay.
looking at how many new cases of this condition pop up every year. So that's what we're going to be taking a deep dive into today.
Sounds good.
I'm joined by our expert to help unpack all this.
Happy to be here.
Ready to shed some light on this for us?
Definitely. Understanding AMD incidence is crucial. That is the number of new cases, especially as our population ages.
Okay.
It's like peering into the future of eye health, and that future needs some clear vision.
I see what you did there. Very good. And you're right, this isn't just about numbers. This is about understanding a condition that can really seriously impact people's lives. One thing that struck me right away was the challenge of actually studying AMD incidence. It's not like tracking the flu, is it?
You're absolutely right. Think about it. AMD primarily affects older adults. And tracking them over long periods presents some unique challenges. People move, they might drop out of studies or pass away from unrelated causes, and that makes long-term studies tricky.
So how did the researchers in this study get around that?
Well, they were pretty clever about it. They actually used two powerful approaches.
Okay.
First, they did a classic meta-analysis, pulling together data from existing incidence studies.
Okay.
But here's the really cool part. They also estimated incidences using data on AMD prevalence.
Hold on, estimating incidence from prevalence. That sounds a little bit like predicting the weather using yesterday's sunshine. How does that even work?
It's pretty ingenious. They made a few reasonable assumptions. First, they considered AMD to be irreversible. Once you have it, you have it.
Okay.
Second, they assume that folks with AMD have similar mortality rates to those without it. And finally, they figured that the risk factors for AMD stay pretty stable over time.
Those do sound like reasonable starting points. But you know me, I'm always wondering about those little details, those little things that can throw a wrench into the works. Anything jump out at you?
Well, while those assumptions generally hold true, there might be subtle variations that could affect the accuracy of their estimations.
Okay.
For example, mortality rates might not be perfectly aligned if you factor in other health conditions that are more common in people with AMD.
It makes sense. It's like assuming everyone in a marathon runs at the same speed.
Exactly.
You're going to get some variation there. So by combining these two methods, looking at both incidence and prevalence data,
Yeah.
they were able to get a much clearer picture of how AMD affects different ages and even different subtypes of the disease.
That's right.
And remember, we are specifically looking at American whites aged 50 and above in this deep dive. So what did they find? Are we talking about a few new cases here and there, or is this a bigger issue?
Get ready for this. They estimated that roughly 3.5 out of every 1,000 American whites aged 50 and older develop late AMD each year.
Wow, that's way more than a few here and there.
Yeah.
We're talking about hundreds of thousands of new cases every year, right?
You got it. And it gets even more eye-opening. The incidence of late AMD practically quadruples with each decade of life.
Oh, wow. It starts climbing quickly after age 50, peaks in the mid-80s, and then starts to decline, likely due to increased mortality in the very oldest age groups.
Exactly.
So it's like this silent epidemic that intensifies as we age.
Right.
Now I've got to ask, does this affect men and women equally, or is there a difference?
That's a great question, and the answer might surprise you.
Okay.
The study found that women actually have a 38% higher incidence rate of late AMD compared to men.
Wow, that's a pretty significant difference. Is that because women tend to live longer? Or could there be other factors at play?
That's a really important question, and one that this particular study didn't delve into. However, it did break down the incidence rates by AMD subtype, which gives us some additional clues.
Okay, tell me more. Are there different types of AMD?
Absolutely, there are two main subtypes: geographic atrophy, or GA, and neovascular AMD, often called NVMD.
Okay, those sound pretty technical. Can you break them down for us? What exactly are they?
You bet. GA is like the slow burn. Cells in the macula slowly deteriorate, causing blurry patches in your central vision.
Okay.
It's almost like your eye is developing bald spots.
Yikes, I can picture that. And what about NVMD?
NVMD is a bit more, shall we say, dramatic. It involves the growth of abnormal blood vessels under the macula, which can leak fluid and blood, causing more rapid vision loss.
So definitely not something you want to mess with. Did the study find any differences in incidence rates for these subtypes between men and women?
Yes, there were some interesting distinctions. The incidence rate for GA is slightly higher in women, but the difference for NBMD is much more pronounced. It seems that women are particularly vulnerable to this more aggressive form of AMD.
So is it fair to say that women might need to be extra vigilant about their eye health as they age?
Absolutely. Awareness is key. We'll talk more about what folks can do to protect their vision later on, but first, let's dive a bit deeper into what these findings really mean.
Okay.
Why should our listeners care about these incidence rates?
Well, for starters, these numbers paint a pretty stark picture of the public health impact of AMD, especially with our population aging rapidly.
Right.
We're talking about a condition that can dramatically impact quality of life, independence, and overall well-being.
It's a wake-up call for sure.
It really is, and these findings underscore the urgent need for more research into risk factors, early detection methods, and of course effective prevention strategies.
Exactly.
Speaking of prevention, that seems like a good place to pick up in the next part of our deep dive.
Sounds good to me.
So stay tuned, folks. We'll be right back after a quick break. All right, so we've established that AMD is a growing concern, especially for women. But before we all start panicking and running for the nearest eye doctor, let's talk about prevention. Because the good news is, there are things we can do to protect our vision.
That's right. It's not all doom and gloom. In fact, understanding those modifiable risk factors, the things we have some control over,
Right.
is key to developing effective prevention strategies.
So let's talk about those risk factors. What are the big ones when it comes to AMD?
Well, you already mentioned a couple in the first part. Smoking and sun exposure, those are definitely at the top of the list.
Smoking, bad for your lungs, bad for your heart, and apparently bad for your eyes, too.
Pretty much it damages blood vessels, increases inflammation, and it's just not doing your eyes any favors.
Makes sense. And what about sun exposure? Is it all sunshine and, vision loss?
Not necessarily, but protecting your eyes from harmful UV rays is crucial.
Okay.
Think of it like sunscreen for your eyes, sunglasses, hats, those stylish visors we talked about earlier, they all help.
Fashionable and functional. I like it. So smoking, sun exposure. What else should we be mindful of?
Diet plays a big role too. A diet rich in antioxidants and omega-3 fatty acids is thought to be protective against AMD.
So load up on those leafy greens, fish, and maybe some berries for good measure.
Exactly. Think of it as fueling your eyes with the good stuff. And of course, maintaining a healthy weight and managing conditions like high blood pressure. And diabetes can also help protect your vision.
It's all connected, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's a holistic approach.
Taking care of your overall health is taking care of your eyes as well.
Now, this research article we've been discussing went beyond simply counting new cases of AMD.
Right.
They used a rather innovative method of estimating incidence from prevalence data.
Can you remind us how that worked?
Sure, remember they tapped into existing prevalence studies, which allowed them to expand their data set and look at different age groups and subtypes of AMD.
Okay.
It was like piecing together a puzzle using all the available pieces, even those from different boxes.
And by filling in those gaps, they were able to reveal some pretty important patterns, right?
Yeah. Exactly. The study confirmed that late AMD incidence doesn't just increase with age. It quadruples with every decade of life.
That's a pretty steep climb.
It is, and that exponential increase underscores the need for prevention and early intervention strategies, especially as our population ages.
And of course, we can't forget about the gender disparity we discussed earlier. Women are facing a significantly higher risk, particularly for that more aggressive NVAVM subtype.
Right.
So what's the takeaway message for our listeners, especially the women out there?
Knowledge is power. Be aware of the risk. Be proactive about your eye health. And don't hesitate to talk to your eye doctor about any concerns.
Speaking of eye doctors, regular checkups are essential.
Absolutely. Regular eye exams can catch early signs of AMD and other eye conditions, which allows for timely intervention and better management of the disease.
It's like that old saying, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. Or in this case, an ounce of eye care is worth a lifetime of vision.
Well said. And remember, prevention isn't just about regular checkups. It's about making healthy lifestyle choices. Not smoking, protecting your eyes from the sun, and nourishing your body with a healthy diet. All of these things contribute to a lifetime of healthy vision.
So we've explored the methods, the findings, and the implications. What's your final verdict on this research? Was it groundbreaking, valuable, or somewhere in between?
I definitely say it's a valuable contribution to the field. While it didn't necessarily reveal anything earth-shattering, it reinforced the importance of understanding AMD incidence.
Okay.
And provided crucial data that can inform public health initiatives.
Data-driven decisions are the best kind, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely, and this study provides a solid foundation for future research and the development of effective prevention and treatment strategies.
Okay, before we wrap up this deep dive, let's recap the key takeaways. What are the main points our listeners should remember?
First and foremost, AMD incidence is on the rise, largely due to our aging population. This means that more and more people are at risk for vision loss, which highlights the urgent need for effective prevention strategies. It's a call to action, for sure.
Indeed. Secondly, the study confirmed that women are disproportionately affected by AMD, particularly the more aggressive NVAMD subtype.
Right.
This underscores the importance of raising awareness among women and encouraging them to be proactive about their eye health.
Early detection is key.
And finally, the study emphasized the importance of using a multifaceted approach to understand AMD incidence. By combining data from both incidence and prevalence studies, researchers were able to get a much more comprehensive and nuanced picture of the disease's impact.
It's like they used a wide-angle lens to capture the full scope of the problem. And it's that wide-angle view that can ultimately lead to more effective solutions.
Exactly. The more we understand about the intricacies of AMD, the better equipped we'll be to combat it.
So we've covered a lot of ground today, but I always like to leave our listeners with something to ponder, a little spark to ignite their curiosity. So here's a final thought-provoking question. If researchers could identify modifiable risk factors for AMD with laser-like precision, what kind of public health interventions could we envision? What would it take to turn the tide on these rising incidence rates?
That's an excellent question. If we had that level of precision, we could move beyond general recommendations and develop highly personalized prevention strategies. Imagine receiving tailored advice based on your unique genetic makeup, lifestyle, and environmental factors. It would be like a custom-designed shield against AMD.
Exactly. We could pinpoint individuals at the highest risk and intervene early with targeted interventions, potentially preventing or delaying the onset of the disease.
It's like giving everyone a personalized roadmap to healthy vision.
I love that analogy. It really highlights the incredible potential of precision medicine. When it comes to combating conditions like AMD, the more we understand about the individual factors that contribute to disease, the better equipped we'll be to prevent it.
It's a future worth striving for, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. A future where vision loss becomes a rarity rather than a looming threat.
And a future where we can all see clearly for years to come. Well, folks, that wraps up our deep dive into late-stage, age-related macular degeneration.
It's been a pleasure exploring this important topic with you.
The pleasure was all mine. A huge thank you to you, our listeners, for joining us on this journey of discovery. Remember, knowledge is power, especially when it comes to our health. Keep learning, keep exploring, and keep those eyes healthy. It's that wide-angle view that can lead us to a brighter future, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. It really highlights the need to look beyond the obvious when we're trying to understand and address, these complex health issues like AMD.
Okay, so as we wrap up our deep dive into AMD, let's revisit that study we've been talking about.
Sure.
It wasn't just about revealing the overall incidence rates, right? They also dug into the specific methods they used to calculate those rates.
You're right. Remember that innovative approach of estimating incidence from prevalence data?
Right.
That was a key part of their methodology.
Right. Allowed them to expand their data set and delve into different age groups and subtypes of AMD.
Yeah.
That's like using multiple tools to get a more accurate measurement.
Exactly. And speaking of accurate measurements, the study found that late AMD incidence doesn't just increase with age, it quadruples with every decade of life.
Wow, that's not just a gradual incline, it's practically a vertical climb.
It is. And that's why these findings are so crucial for public health planning. We need to be prepared for a potential surge in AMD cases as our population continues to age.
And we need to remember that women are facing a steeper climb than men, especially when it comes to the more aggressive form of AMD.
Absolutely. This research underscores the importance of raising awareness among women and encouraging them to be proactive about their eye health.
Right.
Regular eye exams, a healthy lifestyle, and early intervention when necessary can make a world of difference.
So we've explored the methods, we've discussed the findings, and we've pondered the implications. What's the final word on this research article? Would you say it was a game changer?
I wouldn't say it's a complete game changer, but it's definitely a valuable contribution to our understanding of AMD.
Okay.
It reaffirms the importance of understanding AMD incidence, provides solid data that can inform public health initiatives, and highlights the need for continued research and innovation in the field.
And that's what it's all about, right? Continuing to learn, explore, and push the boundaries of knowledge so we can all see the world a little more clearly.
Well said.
Well, folks, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into late-stage, age-related macular degeneration.
It's been a pleasure guiding you through this fascinating topic.
A huge thank you to you, our listeners, for joining us on this journey of discovery. Remember, knowledge is power, especially when it comes to our health. Keep learning, keep exploring, and keep those eyes healthy.